The world's greatest conqueror didn't just fight wars. He played chess with fate itself. Napoleon once declared, "Power is my mistress. I have worked too hard at her conquest to allow anyone to take her away from me." But what was his real secret? Why did he rise from nothing? And why did entire nations tremble at his name? By the end of this video, you won't just understand Napoleonic ambition, you'll feel it burning inside you. Napoleon didn't just want success, he was consumed by it. He called ambition a violent fever that ceases only when life ceases. To Napoleon, ambition wasn't a choice. It was a force of nature that dictated his every thought, every decision, every breath. He didn't hope to become great. He didn't try to win battles. He moved forward with the certainty of a storm, crushing anything that stood in his way. The problem is, most people only flirt with ambition. They see it as a casual goal, something they'll pursue if the timing is right. But for the truly great, ambition is not an option. It's not a hobby. It is an unstoppable hunger that never dies. When Napoleon was a young soldier, he was mocked, ridiculed for his accent, laughed at for being the outsider. And yet he didn't just endure it, he fed off it. Every insult, every dismissal, every doubt placed upon him was fuel. He sharpened his mind like a sword, studied warfare with relentless obsession, and refused to be overlooked. This is where the weak and the strong divide. Most people crumble when ignored. They sulk when doubted. But men like Napoleon, they smile because they know what's coming. They see the future before anyone else does. This is why the ordinary remain ordinary. They let life dictate their story. They wait for the right time, not realizing that time itself is controlled by the bold. Napoleon did not wait. He saw himself as inevitable, and that belief made it true. If you hesitate, someone else will take what could have been yours. So ask yourself, are you playing with ambition or are you letting it consume you? The greatest mistake of weak men? Hesitation. Napoleon once said, "A man who has lost courage lacks decision because he faces alternatives that are all undesirable. And the worst thing in our enterprises is indecision." Most people don't fail because of lack of intelligence or opportunity. They fail because they hesitate. They pause when the moment demands action. They overthink when they should be moving forward like a bullet. What Napoleon understood, better than any man alive, was that power belongs to the decisive. When the moment arrived, he didn't flinch. He didn't second guess. He acted, and he acted fast. This is what separates conquerors from the defeated. Weak men hesitate and watch opportunities pass by. Strong men seize them without apology. Because here's the truth. Nobody's going to hand you power. Nobody is going to wait for you to be ready. If you don't act, someone else will. And when that happens, your dreams, your ambitions, everything you ever wanted, vanishes. Hesitation is the silent killer of ambition. It masquerades as caution, as thinking things through. But in reality, it's fear. Fear of failure. Fear of judgment. Fear of the unknown. But here's the thing. Indecision is still a decision. It's just the decision to lose. So next time you hesitate, remember Napoleon. Ask yourself, are you taking control or are you waiting to be conquered? Power isn't taken, it's built. Napoleon didn't rise by accident. He engineered his ascent. He studied history, understood the movements of power, and positioned himself in the right place at the right time. He once said, "The greater a man is, the less will he must have, and the more he depends on events and circumstances." At first, that sounds like a contradiction. Less will, less control. But Napoleon wasn't talking about passivity. He was talking about positioning. The greatest men in history don't force their way to power. They maneuver into the right circumstances and let the opportunity come to them. This is how true power works. It's not just about effort, it's about understanding the game. You don't force doors open. You make them open themselves. And when they do, you walk through without resistance. Most people work hard, but they don't work strategically. They waste effort on things that don't move the needle. Napoleon knew what mattered. He focused only on moves that would bring him power. and he ignored everything else. If you want to build power in your life, don't just work hard. Work intelligently. Play the game the way Napoleon did, and soon the world will open doors for you because you made it inevitable. What happens when ambition is left unchecked? When the hunger for power no longer serves but consumes? Napoleon understood this better than anyone. He once described ambition as a violent and unthinking fever that ceases only when life ceases, like a conflagration which, fanned by a pitiless wind, ends only after all has been consumed. But here's the question: where is the line? When does ambition transform from a driving force to an uncontrollable storm? Napoleon saw it in history. Alexander the Great, driven beyond reason, believing himself a god, lost in a delusion that led him to an early grave. And yet the alternative is far worse. Without ambition, without that fire, you become nothing. Forgotten, weak, a passenger in your own life. Most people let their ambition die before it ever truly ignites. They fear the burn. But the real danger isn't in having too much ambition. It's in having none at all. This is where most people fail. They get comfortable. They let success dull the edge of their hunger. But for the greatest, ambition is never truly satisfied. It keeps pushing, for better or worse. So ask yourself, have you let your ambition grow weak? Have you started to settle? Or is there still fire in you? Still something left to conquer? In the end, what does ambition leave behind? Napoleon had everything. He built an empire. He redefined war, government, and leadership itself. But as he sat in exile on a remote island, his empire in ruins, did he believe he had lost? "My downfall raises me to infinite heights," he declared. Because true ambition isn't about temporary victories. It's about what remains after you're gone. Napoleon understood that there is no immortality, except in the memory of men. To have lived without glory, without leaving a trace of one's existence, is not to have lived at all, he said. And here's the brutal truth. Most people die twice, first when their body gives out, and second when their name is spoken for the last time. But the great, the ones who push beyond fear, who refuse to be ordinary, their names never disappear. Every choice you make, every action you take, builds your legacy. Will you be remembered, or will your name fade into nothing? The choice is yours, but remember this: if you settle, if you let doubt or hesitation kill your ambition, you're already dead. Even after losing everything, Napoleon still believed he had won. Greatness isn't measured by how much you win. It's measured by how you rise after you fall. Most people fear failure. They see it as an ending, but Napoleon saw it as just another battlefield. Even in exile, he refused to be broken. He was already planning, already thinking about how history would remember him. And that's exactly why his name still echoes today. Napoleon may have died in exile, but his name lives forever. Why? Because he refused to break. He fought until the end. And that is why we still speak his name. So now ask yourself, are you ready to claim your empire? Or are you just another soldier waiting for orders? Most people fail before they even begin. Not because they're weak, not because they lack skill, but because they give themselves a way out. Napoleon never allowed himself the luxury of retreat. He made victory his only option, and that's why he was unstoppable. This is what I call the law of forced victory, a simple, brutal truth. If you have an escape route, your mind will use it. If you give yourself an excuse, you will take it. But if you eliminate all alternatives, if you burn the boats, you force yourself into a state of absolute dominance. Napoleon once said, "Space we can recover, time never." He understood that hesitation, delay, and half-commitment kill ambition faster than failure ever could. He used this law in war. Before every major battle, he would position his troops so that retreat was impossible. There was only one way forward: victory or death. And when a man fights with no escape, with no safety net, he becomes something else. He fights like a beast. He fights like he is already dead. And that is how you become untouchable. History is filled with examples. Cortez, landing in the New World, burned his ships so his men had no option but to conquer. Business titans like Elon Musk, who put his last dollars into Tesla, leaving no room for failure, and Napoleon, who moved forward even when the whole world turned against him. Most people never reach this level. They hedge their bets, they prepare escape plans, and that's why they fail. Right now, think about the thing you want most in life: the success, the wealth, the power. Now ask yourself, have you really committed? Or have you been leaving the back door open just in case? Because the truth is, ambition doesn't care about your comfort. If you don't make your goal the only option, you will never reach it. So here's the challenge. What safety net do you need to cut away? What excuse have you been using as a shield? If you truly want to win, you must force yourself into battle with no retreat. And once you do, you will see what you are truly capable of. By now, you understand ambition. You see the power of decisiveness. You know the price of greatness. But here's the problem. Most people stop here. They watch, they learn, and then they do nothing. Napoleon didn't just think about power. He didn't just talk about success. He took it, and he did it with ruthless, relentless action. He once said, "The strong are good, only the weak are wicked." Because weakness, hesitation, laziness, doubt leads men to do terrible things. It makes them bitter, jealous, small. The strong, the ones who act, they build the world. They shape history. And now it's your turn. You have two choices. You can walk away from this video, go back to your ordinary life, and forget everything you've heard. So what will you do? Will you act, or will you disappear into history like the billions of others who settled for mediocrity? You can defeat armies, you can conquer nations, but the greatest war you will ever fight is the war against yourself. Napoleon once said, "A man will fight harder for his interests than for his rights." He understood that the real battle, the one that defines a man, is fought internally. It's the battle between discipline and laziness, between fear and action, between the version of you that wants to win and the version of you that wants to stay comfortable. Most people don't lose because the enemy is stronger. They lose because they sabotage themselves. They wake up with ambition and kill it with procrastination. They feel the fire, but let it burn out under distraction and self-doubt. Napoleon never allowed himself to be ruled by weakness. He dominated his emotions. He used his own mind as a weapon. He knew that if he ever lost control of himself, he would lose control of everything else. And that's where most people fail. They get too emotional. They let doubt creep in. They let a single setback make them rethink their entire ambition. But Napoleon, when he lost a battle, he didn't break down. He adapted. When he faced criticism, he didn't shrink. He grew stronger. So ask yourself right now, who is really stopping you? Your boss? The economy? Society? Or is it just you? The only thing that will ever hold you back is the war inside your own head. Win that war, and you will be unstoppable. At the peak of his power, Napoleon ruled half of Europe. He had everything: money, an empire, the loyalty of millions. And yet, just a few years later, he was alone, exiled, a prisoner on a tiny island in the middle of nowhere. Most men would have collapsed. Most men would have lost their will. But Napoleon, he still saw himself as a conqueror. Even in his final days, even knowing he would never return to power, he said, "I close my career with the persuasion that I have acted always for the good of my people." Because that is what ambition truly is. It's not just about winning. It's not just about conquering. It's about knowing, deep down, that you gave everything, that you fought until the last breath. Weak men look for perfect conditions. They wait for the right time, the right opportunity. But Napoleon, he moved forward no matter what. Whether he was leading an army or sitting in exile, he remained the same man, relentless, unbreakable, refusing to accept defeat. And that's the final lesson. Life will test you. It will push you down. It will throw you into exile. But the only thing that matters is this: Will you keep moving forward? Will you keep fighting? Or will you let yourself be forgotten? Because in the end, history doesn't remember the ones who quit. It remembers the ones who kept going, no matter what.